I used to believe that once you crossed a certain age, decline was simply part of the deal. That weak legs, walking canes, and slow steps were unavoidable companions of growing older. That belief held strong in my mind for years until something happened that shattered it completely. It was a quiet Sunday morning when I witnessed it. My uncle, 78 years old, stood up from his chair on his own. No cane, no assistance, no hesitation, just strength, just confidence. And the look on his face? It was like he had just taken back a part of his life that he thought was gone forever. Only 3 weeks earlier, he could barely make it across the living room without leaning heavily on a wooden cane we had carved together years ago. Every step looked like a struggle. Every movement came with effort. So, how did this happen? I didn't believe the change at first. I thought maybe it was a good day, a lucky moment. But the truth? It was the result of 3 very simple habits, ones we had completely overlooked. This is not a miracle story. It is a story about knowledge, action, and gentle changes that turned everything around. And today, I want to share that journey with you. My uncle's name is Walter. He is 78 years old, and for most of my life, I remember him with a cane. Not because he wanted to stand out, but because he had no choice. His knees had worn out after years of hard labor, construction jobs, and a stubborn refusal to slow down even as the decades passed. He used to say, "My legs built homes, they built memories, but now they barely hold me up." Walter is not the type to complain. He's the kind of man who sits on the front porch, rain or shine, with his radio playing old country songs. He talks slow, but his stories run deep. A war veteran, a father of 5, and a widower for the past 10 years. He has weathered more than most, and through it all his cane became a part of him, like a loyal companion. Every morning I watched him struggle to rise. First the heavy sigh, then the grip on the chair's armrest. Finally the slow lean into the cane, followed by those short, cautious steps. It was hard to see. This was the man who once lifted me onto his shoulders with one arm. Now walking to the mailbox left him winded. What made it worse was how quietly it all happened. Walter never asked for help. He never admitted how scared he felt when his legs gave out without warning. But I saw it, the hesitation when he reached for a glass, the way he timed his walks only when someone was nearby. He did not want to be a burden. He did not want to fall. And neither did I want to watch him fade like this. I wanted to help, but I didn't know how. Doctors said it was just age. That made me angry. There had to be more. There had to be something we were missing. I started reading, searching, listening to every whisper of hope I could find. I did not expect a breakthrough, but then something unexpected happened, something that would change everything. 3 weeks ago, Walter had a fall. It happened in the kitchen. He had just made himself a cup of tea and was turning to sit down when his right leg buckled underneath him. There was no warning, no sharp pain, just a sudden failure. The cup shattered, hot tea splashed everywhere, and he hit the floor hard. I heard the crash from the living room. By the time I reached him, he was sitting on the tile, stunned and shaking. He was not crying, but his hands trembled as he held his knee. His cane had rolled across the floor, completely out of reach. "I'm fine," he said, just lost my balance. But it wasn't fine. It had happened before, just not this bad. Every time he got up slower, every time it took longer for the bruises to heal. This time he couldn't get up on his own. I had to lift him. Later that night, something shifted in his voice. He sat in his armchair, eyes fixed on the carpet. Quiet. Then he said, "Maybe I don't have much time left standing." That line stayed with me. It was not just about his body. It was about his spirit, his independence, his dignity. For the first time I saw that Walter was scared. Not of pain, not of aging, but of losing the last piece of freedom he had left, his ability to stand. And that scared me too, because if Walter gave up, if he stopped trying, then he would truly begin to fade. I knew we had to act, not just with medication, not just with another checkup or a new cane. We had to find a way to help his body remember how to stand strong, how to walk without fear. That night, I stayed up late. I searched medical forums, videos, old health journals. I wrote down every article I could find on muscle loss in seniors, circulation issues, and natural ways to restore strength. One phrase kept coming up over and over again: "You are what you feed your legs." And suddenly everything started to make sense. What if Walter's body wasn't done? What if it was just missing the right kind of support? And that support, as I would soon learn, came from something surprisingly simple: food. It started with a video, a quiet clip from a wellness channel for seniors. No hype, no miracle cures, just a soft-spoken doctor talking about something called sarcopenia, the gradual loss of muscle mass and strength in older adults. I watched it 3 times, then I read the comments. So many people were sharing stories just like Walter's: slow legs, unsteady steps, then a fall, then fear. But one comment caught my eye. It said, "My dad couldn't stand on his own, then we added 3 simple foods to his daily routine. 3 weeks later, he walked across the room without help." That sounded like fiction, but the curiosity wouldn't let me go. I dug deeper. These 3 foods kept showing up in research papers, nutrition blogs, and clinical recommendations. Each one supported the body in a different but essential way. They were not exotic or expensive. In fact, they were probably already in most kitchens. The first was salmon or other oily fish, rich in omega-3 fatty acids and complete protein. It helped with inflammation, muscle repair, and blood circulation. It was called brain food, but as I was learning, it was leg food too. The second was leafy greens, spinach, kale, chard. Packed with magnesium, calcium, and vitamin K, they fed the bones and muscles while calming the nervous system. They were not just for salads. They were medicine in disguise. The third was beans, lentils, black beans, chickpeas. These were muscle builders. They were loaded with plant protein and fiber, but they also helped stabilize blood sugar, which affects balance and energy. It sounded too simple, too gentle to be effective. But the evidence was there. Studies showed that older adults who included these in their regular diet regained strength faster, had fewer falls, and even improved their walking speed. I called Walter's doctor the next day. She listened patiently, then she said something that surprised me. "It's a smart idea. Food is fuel, and most seniors are running on empty. Give it a try, but go slow." So I made a list. I planned his meals, and I asked him to trust me just for 3 weeks. 3 weeks? He asked. 3 weeks. I said, "If nothing changes, we stop. But if something does, we keep going." He looked at me quietly, then nodded. The first few days were slow, understandably so. Walter was skeptical. He had eaten the same breakfast for 20 years, toast with jam, coffee, black, maybe a boiled egg on Sundays. Now I was placing a small bowl of lentils in front of him, sautéed spinach on the side, and gently poached salmon with lemon for lunch. He poked at the salmon like it might poke back. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. "I'm not promising magic," I said. "Just nourishment. Just give it time." He nodded again, but I could feel the resistance. Change is hard, especially when you're 78 and the world already feels unfamiliar, but we kept at it. Every day a small portion of beans, either mixed into soups or mashed into spreads. Every lunch or dinner included some form of leafy green, gently cooked with olive oil and garlic. And twice a week I served fish, baked or grilled, with just enough seasoning to keep it interesting. We didn't talk much about results. That was part of our deal. No expectations, just consistency. But on the 7th day, I noticed something. Walter was sitting straighter. He didn't use the armrest to push himself up from the chair. He did it slowly, but he did it. I didn't say anything. By the 10th day, he started walking a little farther in the hallway. He reached for the wall less. His face looked calmer, more focused. Still, we said nothing. Then came the moment I will never forget. It was the 17th morning. I had just stepped into the kitchen when I heard movement behind me. I turned around and there was Walter, standing in the doorway, holding his cane but not leaning on it. "I didn't need it to get out of bed today," he said softly. "I used my legs." I felt strong. I didn't say a word, I just nodded. Inside, I wanted to cry. Not because he stood without help, but because he believed he could, because that belief had been gone for so long, and now it was back, quiet but steady. It wasn't about the food, not really. It was about the message the food gave his body. You are still capable, you are still healing, you're not done yet. You might be wondering, how can something as simple as changing food make such a big difference? It's not magic, it's biology, and it starts with the 3 silent warriors in Walter's new diet. First, salmon. Wild-caught salmon is rich in omega-3 fatty acids, the kind your body cannot produce on its own. These fats are crucial for reducing inflammation, improving blood flow, and supporting muscle recovery. As we age, inflammation becomes a silent thief, slowly wearing down joints, stiffening muscles, and even clouding brain function. When Walter ate salmon, he wasn't just feeding his stomach, he was fueling his body's natural repair system. The omega-3s helped reduce the swelling in his knees, improved his circulation, and made each step less painful than the last. Second, leafy greens, spinach, kale, Swiss chard. These are not just rabbit food, they're bone protectors rich in vitamin K, magnesium and calcium. And here's something most people don't know. Your bones are alive. They break down and rebuild themselves constantly, especially under pressure. When Walter began eating greens every day, those nutrients started to strengthen the foundation of his legs. His bones, once brittle and ignored, were finally getting the materials they needed to rebuild. Strong bones mean better posture, less pain, and more confidence when walking. Third, beans. Simple, humble, but packed with protein, iron, and B vitamins. Most seniors don't get enough protein, especially not from clean plant-based sources. Protein is what your muscles need to stay firm and functional. Without it, they shrink. And once they shrink, balance goes, then independence. Beans also contain fiber, which helps regulate blood sugar. When blood sugar stays steady, energy stays steady. That means fewer dizzy spells, fewer naps from exhaustion, and more stamina to move around. But here's what ties it all together. These foods do not act alone. They work in harmony. Omega-3s reduce inflammation so muscles can grow. Greens support the bones so muscles have a solid base to pull from. Beans fuel the muscles themselves with clean, slow-burning energy. Together they create a system, a quiet, powerful system that brings strength back to tired legs. Walter didn't need a miracle. He needed a plan, one that respected his age, his body, and his potential. The science is there. The truth is clear. The physical changes were powerful, yes, but what truly transformed Walter's life was something deeper. It was the return of confidence. For weeks he had doubted himself. Each step felt like a test he might fail. He was afraid of falling, afraid of looking weak in front of his grandchildren, afraid of becoming a burden. That fear was silent, but it was heavy. He carried it with every shuffle, every slow climb up the stairs, every glance toward his forgotten cane. But after 3 weeks of changing how he ate, that fear started to melt away. One morning, Walter did something small but significant. He walked across the living room without the cane. No announcement, no drama. He just stood up and went. His wife, Lorna, looked up from her book, eyes wide. "Wait," she said, "did you walk here?" Walter chuckled, a little surprised himself. "I guess I did." That moment wasn't just about steps. It was about self-belief returning. It was about looking at himself not as an aging man whose best days were behind him, but as someone still capable of progress, of growth, of strength. Confidence is not just a feeling, it's a fuel. And once Walter started trusting his legs again, everything changed. He began to walk a little farther each day. From the living room to the porch, then down the street, then to the park, the same park where he used to take his grandkids years ago. Now he walked there by choice. Not because he had to, but because he could. And something else happened. Walter started laughing more, telling more stories, staying up later at dinner, helping with the dishes, even dancing, slowly but surely, to his favorite jazz records with Lorna in the kitchen. You see, regaining strength isn't just about muscles, it's about reclaiming the parts of your life that physical pain has slowly taken away. When your legs feel weak, you feel small. When they feel strong, you start to dream again. For Walter, the food wasn't just nutrition, it was a message to his body, and his body listened. That emotional shift, the quiet return of hope, is what makes these small dietary changes so powerful. Because when you believe in yourself again, no goal feels too far. Now in part 8, we will break down exactly what Walter ate, how often, and how you can do the same, starting with what's already in your kitchen. Let's get practical now. What exactly did Walter eat during those 3 weeks? What was on his plate that made such a visible difference in his strength, balance, and energy? It wasn't a complicated meal plan, no fancy powders, no expensive supplements, just real wholesome food in the right balance at the right time. Here's the 3-part system Walter followed and how you can adapt it starting today. 1. Daily muscle fuel. High-quality protein. Every morning, Walter started his day with a protein-rich breakfast. Scrambled eggs with spinach and a slice of whole-grain toast. Or Greek yogurt with a handful of berries and a spoonful of chia seeds. The goal was simple. Give his muscles what they needed to stay strong. Older adults often lose muscle due to low protein intake, but Walter flipped that script. He ate at least 20 to 25 grams of protein per meal, enough to support his legs, hips, and core without overloading his digestion. He also added small amounts of beans, lentils, or fish throughout the week. Tuna salad for lunch, lentil soup for dinner, salmon twice a week. 2. Circulation boosters, greens, and healthy fats. Walter made one big change in his diet. He swapped out processed foods and sugary snacks for leafy greens and heart-healthy fats. He added kale or arugula to his sandwiches. He sautéed spinach with garlic and olive oil, and he snacked on almonds or walnuts instead of chips. Healthy fats helped reduce inflammation in his joints. Greens gave his blood vessels the support they needed to deliver oxygen to his legs. Together, they turned his meals into medicine. 3. Smart timing and hydration. Walter also adjusted when he ate. He stopped late-night snacking and made sure dinner was his lightest meal of the day. He drank a glass of room-temperature water first thing in the morning, not cold, not rushed, just a gentle wake-up for his body. That shift alone reduced his bloating and helped him sleep better, which meant more energy in the morning and less swelling in his legs. But the real key wasn't just what he ate, it was that he stuck with it. For 21 days, he made these meals a habit, and by day 22, the cane was no longer by his side. We'll dive into the simple exercises Walter added during week 2, because food was only half the story. Movement, even light movement, was the spark that kept the momentum going, and you can start from exactly where you are. While nutrition laid the foundation, movement brought the transformation to life. Walter didn't go to a gym. He didn't hire a personal trainer. He started in his living room with nothing more than a sturdy chair and a little determination. For older adults, especially those who feel weak or unstable, the key is not doing more, but doing what matters. Here are the 3 exercises Walter did daily, starting from week 2. 1. Sit to stands. This was Walter's first move each morning. He sat in a firm chair with his feet flat on the floor and stood up without using his hands, then sat back down, then did it again. At first he could only do 5. His legs trembled, his knees cracked. But every day he added one more. By the end of 3 weeks, he was doing 15, smoothly, confidently. This exercise trained his thighs, hips, and glutes, the core muscles needed for balance, walking, and standing up safely. 2. Heel raises standing at the kitchen counter. Walter would slowly lift his heels off the floor and balance on his toes, then lower them again. This move woke up his calves, strengthened his ankles, and improved his overall stability. He did 3 sets of 10 every day while waiting for his tea to brew. These tiny lifts made a big difference. They reduced the risk of falls and helped his feet feel more connected to the ground. 3. Marching in place. 3 times a day, Walter set a timer for 2 minutes. He stood upright, held the back of a chair and gently lifted one knee, then the other, marching in place slowly and with focus. This wasn't about cardio, it was about coordination, reconnecting his brain with his legs, building endurance 1 step at a time. He sometimes did it while watching TV, sometimes while waiting for his soup to warm. The goal wasn't intensity, it was consistency. By the end of week 3, Walter didn't just feel stronger, he moved stronger. His steps were more stable, his shoulders more upright. And that fear of falling that had crept into his mind, it began to fade. We'll take a look at what changed inside Walter that made these external changes possible. Because strength is not just in the muscles. It's in the mindset. And what Walter learned may surprise you. Walter's story wasn't just about food or movement. It was about belief. Because the real turning point didn't happen in his muscles, it happened in his mind. For months, he believed his decline was inevitable, that weak legs, a cane, and the fear of falling were just part of being old, that no matter what he tried, his body would keep failing him. But something changed the day his grandson asked him to walk without the cane, not because he had to, but because he believed he might be able to. That question planted a new idea in Walter's heart. What if it's not too late? This shift in mindset was more powerful than any exercise, more powerful than any food, because when Walter believed he could improve, he acted like it. He stopped calling himself old. He stopped waiting for someone to fix him. He became an active participant in his own healing. Instead of saying, I can't, he started asking, what if I try? This shift did something incredible. It made him more consistent, more willing to try, more patient with setbacks, and most importantly, it reconnected him with hope. He didn't need to see dramatic results overnight. He just needed to believe that effort would bring change. That effort still mattered. And here's what we often forget as we age. It's not about running marathons. It's about feeling capable again. It's about waking up and knowing I can still do something. Walter kept a journal. Every evening, he wrote down 3 things he did well that day. Sometimes it was as small as finishing his sit to stands. Sometimes it was choosing spinach over chips. Sometimes it was simply deciding not to give up. That daily habit reinforced his progress. It built confidence. It reminded him that improvement wasn't a miracle, it was a practice. By the end of 3 weeks, Walter's legs were stronger, but more importantly, Walter was stronger inside and out, and when he finally stood up in front of the family gathering without a cane, without hesitation, he didn't just surprise them, he surprised himself. We'll explore the science behind why these habits worked, not in a complicated way, but in a simple, clear explanation. Because understanding your body helps you take better care of it, and Walter's story is proof of that. So how did Walter manage to regain strength at 78? Was it luck? Was it some miracle cure? Not quite. It was science, applied gently and consistently. Let's break it down in simple terms, just like we did for Walter. First, let's talk about muscle memory. Even after years of sitting too much, your muscles remember how to work. They just need a reminder. When Walter started doing basic leg lifts, he reactivated dormant muscle fibers. These movements may have looked small, but inside they sent a powerful message. Wake up, we need you again. Second, nutrition. When Walter added salmon, leafy greens, and beans to his diet, he wasn't just eating better. He was giving his body the building blocks it needed to repair itself. Salmon brought in omega-3s, which helped reduce inflammation and improve blood flow to his legs. That made every step a little easier. Leafy greens gave him calcium and vitamin K, both critical for keeping bones strong. That meant fewer aches, better balance, and more confidence when standing up. And beans? They delivered protein for muscle repair, fiber for steady energy, and key nutrients like magnesium and iron that help with endurance. Walter didn't need supplements. He needed food that spoke his body's language. Now here's the third piece, circulation. With age, blood doesn't always flow as easily to the legs. That's why older adults often feel cold feet, tingling, or numbness. But movement, even gentle movement, acts like a pump. It sends fresh blood down to the legs, carrying oxygen and nutrients to the very muscles that need healing. When Walter moved his legs, then elevated them afterward while resting, he gave his circulation a boost. And that boost turned into strength, one quiet day at a time. Fourth, sleep and rest. Walter started sleeping better because he wasn't eating inflammatory foods before bed. Better sleep helped his body heal, especially his muscles. When we sleep, our bodies repair. That's when the rebuilding really happens. And finally, mindset. Studies show that belief in recovery significantly increases a person's ability to follow through. Walter's shift from fear to hope triggered a cascade of positive behaviors. He ate better, moved more, slept deeper, and smiled again. No pills, no surgery. No magic, just the right actions at the right time for the right reason. In the final part, we'll wrap up with a message of hope. Because if Walter could do it, so can you, or someone you love. Age doesn't mean decline, it just means we need to care for ourselves a little differently, and that difference can change everything. If you've made it this far, take a breath and let this sink in. This story wasn't just about Walter. It was about you, your father, your mother, your neighbor, your future. Because here's the truth. The kind that so many people overlook. Your body may grow older, but it never stops responding to care. Walter didn't reverse time. He didn't become 40 again, but what he did do was reclaim strength, reclaim dignity, reclaim movement, and that changed his entire world. He stood up without help. He walked without fear. And more importantly, he believed in his body again. That is what's possible when you stop accepting weakness as a life sentence. So if your legs feel slower than they used to, if your knees creak when you rise, if stairs feel like mountains and your cane feels like a permanent extension of your arm, pause right now. Not in despair, but in awareness. Because small steps work. Small food changes help. Small stretches heal. You don't have to start big. You don't have to get it perfect. You just have to begin. Add a spoon of beans to your salad. Swap your late-night snack for something green. Stand up during commercials and lift one leg at a time. That's enough. More than enough to get your body's attention and start the process of renewal. And please don't keep this knowledge to yourself. If you know someone who thinks they're too old to improve, too far gone to stand again, tell them about Walter. Show them what's possible with gentleness, patience, and intention. You see, we were never meant to age alone. Wisdom is something to share. And healing, real healing, starts when we believe in one another. So tonight maybe you'll take a slow walk around your home before bed. Maybe tomorrow you'll look at your plate and choose one new thing that fuels your strength instead of draining it. Maybe next week you'll help someone else stand, literally or emotionally, just by sharing this story. Because your legs are not just legs. They are your roots, your wings, your way of saying, I'm still here. I still want to walk through this world with purpose, and you can. You absolutely can. Thank you for spending this time with us here at Elderly Wisdom Lessons. If this story touched your heart, inspired your day, or gave you a new idea for your health, share it, subscribe, comment below. This community is for you and because of you. We'll see you in the next story. Until then, stay wise, stay strong, and keep walking.